Hey guys, it's Arcade and I'm back with another video, and in this one I'm gonna show you how to make music like Avicii. So I thought about whether I should or shouldn't make this video, but recently Avicii's new album was released called Tim, and I was really inspired by it, so I decided to make this video and share it with you as well. So let's get started. So I set the BPM to 124, which is what most of Avicii's tracks move around, and let's get started with the drums first. So for the drums I'm using this kick. Just a simple kick with a top kick in it, so it's kind of a punchy kick. I have this crash here as well. And this snare and a clap. So a simple clap and a snare. This is how it sounds together. So that's pretty basic. That's what I'm using in the first part of the drop. And in the second repetition, I added some more claps, like these folk claps, which are just offbeat claps. And also some drop claps, which go on each beat. Together it creates this nice folk clap effect, almost like a real clap, and it sounds like this. And adds a little bit of rhythm to the whole song. And in the second repetition of the drop, I also use white noise. So the drums sound like this. So yeah, the use of the offbeat claps along with the claps that are on the beat is really nice and creates a nice effect. Now let's move on to the chords. For the chords, I'm using this sound from Serum called Plucky Chords, and it's a really basic sound. It's from my Pina Colada sample pack if you are wondering, and it sounds like this. Here we have the chord progression. So we start with the bass notes. So as you can see, it's not too complicated, just a simple bass progression here. And then what we do, we add the chords. So the way I do it is really simple. Once I have the bass notes, to add the chords, I basically go to the bass notes with G2 and I find the G 2 octaves higher or more, depending on the sound, and I create a chord. So one note here on the G, skip 3 notes, and put a note on the 4th note, skip 2 notes and put a note on the 3rd note. So there we have a simple major chord. But then what you can do to make this more interesting, now it's kind of in the lower frequencies, so if you want to make this more exciting, you can put some of the notes octave higher or lower. So maybe select the lower note, hold Ctrl, arrow up to put it octave higher, and then select the D note, hold Ctrl, arrow down, put it octave lower. Now we got the same chord, but the notes are in a different order. And yeah, that's basically how I did all the chords. Sometimes you want to switch between major and minor chords. The way you do it, you just move the middle note of the chord. So if we have the G chord, if we have the G chord here, this is a major chord. If you want to change it to minor, you just move the middle note one down. And then it's a minor chord. So yeah, this is really basic stuff, and I know I don't really know music theory, but this is how I make chords pretty much, at least when you want to just do the basic major and minor chords. So yeah, then we have this chord progression. One thing to take note of, and what Avicii did a lot in his tracks, is he switches between the chords more often. So you can see we switch between the chords in one bar. There's 2 chords in one bar. This is 1 bar, this is 2 bars. And we switch a bit faster than usual. Usually you would have 1 chord in 1 bar, then another chord in the second one. But here we have 2 chords in 1 bar. This also helps when you are creating a melody, because you change the chords so often, you have different options with the melody as well. So yeah, just a little detail you can use in your tracks. Just change the chords this way, like 2 chords in 1 bar, and you're gonna have a little bit of a different rhythm and vibe in the whole song. And as far as the actual rhythm of the chords goes, We just go 2 notes and then 1 here and repeat that throughout the whole song. So that's it for the chords. As far as the effects go, I deleted the low frequencies because we want the bass to occupy the low frequencies, and I boosted the high frequencies to improve the sound a little bit. I also have Fruity Compressor here. I think I used one of the presets, but I'm not sure, and it makes a little bit of difference. Just makes everything tighter as far as the chords go. Then I have LFO tool, that's basically sidechaining, so every time the kick hits, the volume of this is lowered, and we should put it on the bottom. And then I have Sound Goodizer, just to boost the frequencies even more, and one more EQ, just adjusting the frequencies a little bit. Of course, every song is different, so adjust your frequencies how you see fit. So listen to the song, and if something is off, just try adjusting the frequencies of that thing. So yeah, that's it for the effects on the chords. I also use another sound for the chords, which is a piano. It's this piano called Pop Keys. I know Avicii used this preset in his song as well, and it sounds like this. So yeah, the piano really gives the track a nice acoustic feel, and you could see Avicii using piano a lot in his tracks, as well as the guitar. So we have the piano, the same effects as the chords, and then we also have a guitar. So I'm using a plugin called Real Guitar and this acoustic preset, and basically we have the same chords, and I also used the hitting the guitar, hitting the strums effect for extra realism. And yeah, the guitar is kind of in the background, but it creates a nice effect, and again gives the song more of an acoustic feel, which, as you can hear in Avicii's tracks, a huge part of the tracks were acoustic. As far as the effects on the guitar, we also removed the low frequencies and boost the high frequencies. I added some reverb on it and stereo shaper to make it stereo in the mix. Just move the delay to the left and the whole guitar sound will be wider in the mix compared to the other sounds. The chords together sound like this. So we have that plucky chord in there, but we also have the piano and the guitar adding to it. And with the drums, it sounds like this. So that's a really nice bass for a song. And now let's move on to the melodies. I have 2 melodies here, one in the first part of the drop and then a second one. So for the first one, this is what I have. So a pretty plucky melody right there. I also layered it more, so we have this Whistler plugin, which is a free plugin, and I really like it, and I think Avicii used it as well. You can hear it in some of his sounds, that there's something similar to this at least. So I recommend getting this plugin, and then I also have this layer. So I decided to make this melody pretty plucky, and it was definitely inspired by the new album. A lot of plucky sounds were used there. And a fun fact, some people didn't like the album, they said it's not like Avicii and stuff, but I really liked it. And if you check on Spotify, you can actually see the story behind the songs in the description on Spotify, and you can see how much was done by Avicii. But yeah, I recommend checking out the stories, it was pretty interesting to read, and it made you kind of get into the album even more, which was really nice. So yeah, this is the melody. Number 1, and for the sounds I'm using mostly Nexus and mostly plucky sounds. I think Nexus is one of the best plugins for pluck sounds. So we have this one, we have this one, you can see the names right here. Then we have this one, then we have the Whistler, and then this sound. So that's it for the layers, and for the effects I have Sound Goodizer on it with the C preset, which I think boosts more of the mid frequencies. Then we have the EQ where I delete most of the low frequencies and boost the high frequencies. Then some reverb which is pretty important for the melodies, just to kind of make them more alive in the mix. And then also LFO tool to just sidechain the sounds, so every time the kick hits, the volume of the sound is lowered. So that's the melody. To make it, I just kind of went with it. I usually listen to the chords and start thinking about the melody. And I know for Avicii, the melodies were the most important thing of the whole song. He mentioned that the melody is kind of the universal language that everybody can understand, basically. And yeah, I think the most important thing about Avicii's tracks were the melody and the emotion that it created in you. And yeah, this is the melody I came up with. And one thing I was inspired on from the new album was these notes. And basically what you do, you just click a note, hold the Alt key and move it around. If you want to create this effect, just make sure you stay in the key of your song. And to help you with that, you can use the helpers and K highlighting automatic. And you can see the grayed out notes are in the key of the song. So you can use those all the time and you will be good. So yeah, that's the melody number 1. And then we have a second melody in the second repetition of the drop. And this melody was inspired by Broken Arrows. And the sounds stay pretty much the same, but I added this one layer, which is this sound. And other than that, all the sounds are the same. But as I said, my melody is kind of plucky, but you can also use leads for these sounds to make the melody more lead based. So that's why I included this sound in the second repetition to make the melody a bit more lead based. And so that's it for the melody. It sounds like this. So yeah, inspired by Broken Arrows, especially like this thing. And as you can see, actually if we go to helpers, this note is not in the key of the song, but it still kind of works. I think it's just in a different scale, and I really like the effect it created. So that's it for the melodies. And the last sound I want to show you is the bass, and it's pretty basic. It follows the bass notes of the chords I showed you in the beginning. And for the sound, I'm using this bass called Play Me, also from my Pina Colada sample pack. Yeah, make sure to have a bass with some sort of a pluck in the beginning, but also a lot of sub bass as well. That works pretty well for this type of track. And yeah, the bass is also sidechained by LFO tool. And yeah guys, that is pretty much it for the whole track. It is pretty basic, you know, you got the chords, you got the bass, you got the melodies, but what's important is the melodies, actually, the composition of the track. And of course, in Avicii's tracks, you would have this nice guitar and vocal, which would put the whole track together. But here is what I created. I hope you enjoy it. Let's hear it.